What if the worst day of your life played out in front of millions of strangers, and nobody could look away? These are the darkest, most chilling moments ever captured on live television. Stories that were never supposed to end the way they did. From hostage crises broadcast to an entire nation, to journalists gunned down while holding their cameras, to children's TV stars hiding unspeakable secrets, these moments changed everything. Let's get into it. On October 13, 2008, in Santo André, São Paulo, Brazil, a 15-year-old girl named Eloa Cristina Pimentel was sitting in her small apartment working on a school project with her friend Nayara and two male classmates. It was supposed to be just another afternoon of studying for exams. Eloa was a bright student with dreams of becoming a teacher. Her warm smile and infectious laughter made her one of the most popular girls at her high school. Her mother worked double shifts at a textile factory to support the family, often leaving Eloa to look after her younger siblings while still maintaining excellent grades. Despite the financial struggles, she remained optimistic about her future, spending hours tutoring younger students and volunteering at the neighborhood community center. But that quiet afternoon shattered when Eloa's 22-year-old ex-boyfriend, Lindenberg Fernandez Alves, burst into the apartment carrying a firearm. Their relationship had started when she was just 11, an age gap that should have raised immediate red flags. What began as childhood affection had turned possessive and dark. He would get jealous whenever Eloa spoke to other boys, monitored her every move, and demanded to know her whereabouts at all times. When she finally found the courage to end things at 13, his behavior only got worse. And now, 2 years later, he still hadn't accepted it. Lindenberg let the two boys leave but kept Eloa and Nayara trapped inside. What followed was a hostage situation that would last 5 agonizing days, over 100 hours. Broadcast live across all of Brazil, police responded with their elite tactical unit known as GATE, and negotiations began. The next evening, Nayara was released unharmed. But then police made a decision that would later be called reckless and dangerous. They asked the 15-year-old girl to go back into that apartment, saying her presence might help calm Lindenberg down. And here is where it gets even more disturbing. As the situation dragged on, media attention exploded. News outlets provided live updates day and night. Then a TV journalist named Sônia Abrão actually called Lindenberg live on air while he was still inside holding Eloa hostage. She spoke with both him and Eloa, and the entire conversation was broadcast to the entire country. Legal experts later said the call directly interfered with the police operation, and a civil case was filed against Abrão for putting lives at risk. By October 17th, the standoff had gone on for over 100 hours. Police reported hearing gunshots inside and made the decision to breach. Gate officers, along with military police shock troops, forced their way in. Lindenberg resisted and used the firearm. Nayara was shot in the face but managed to leave the apartment alive. Eloa was hit twice, once in the head and once in the lower body. Cameras were rolling as she was carried out unconscious and rushed to a hospital, but she didn't survive. Doctors declared her brain dead on October 18th, and she was removed from life support. Her organs were later donated and saved 7 lives. Around 10,000 people attended Eloa's funeral. In 2018, Nayara was awarded roughly $37,000 in damages after the court found the state responsible for what she had endured. Lindenberg was sentenced to 39 years and 3 months in prison. To this day, Eloa's story remains one of Brazil's most disturbing and tragic cases, a haunting reminder of what happens when live television turns real suffering into a spectacle. But the horror doesn't stop there. On September 27, 2007, in Yangon, Myanmar, tensions had been building for 10 days. Crowds had taken to the streets in peaceful protest. Buddhist monks in red robes led the demonstrations, walking calmly and chanting for freedom. What started as protests against rising fuel prices had grown into a full-blown call for democracy. This would become known as the Saffron Revolution. In the middle of all this stood 50-year-old Kenji Nagai, a Japanese journalist who had arrived just 2 days earlier. He worked for a small outlet called APF News and had spent years reporting from the world's most dangerous places: Afghanistan, Iraq, Palestine. His mission was always the same: go where others wouldn't and show the world what was really happening. His colleagues described him as fearless, but never reckless, a man who understood the weight of documenting history as it unfolded. That morning, Kenji positioned himself near the Sule Pagoda in downtown Yangon, the area packed with protesters waving flags linked to Aung San Suu Kyi's political party. The crowd remained peaceful until military trucks rolled in. Soldiers got out carrying rifles and shields. The military government issued a clear warning: leave in 10 minutes or face the consequences. Then came the response. First, tear gas, then gunfire. First into the air, then directly into the crowd. Kenji kept filming. His last recorded words, caught on camera. The army has just arrived. The army is over there. They are heavily armed. Then the shooting began. Kenji was hit and fell to the ground. Even then, witnesses say he continued to hold up his camera, trying to document what was happening around him. A Reuters photographer named Adris Latif captured a haunting image. Kenji lying on the ground, a soldier standing over him with a rifle, his camera still in his grip. That photograph would go on to win the Pulitzer Prize. The Myanmar government initially claimed Kenji was caught in crossfire, but video evidence told a different story. A soldier had pushed him to the ground and shot him at close range. An autopsy in Japan confirmed the bullet went through his chest, hit his heart, and exited through his back. Kenji was the only foreign journalist to lose his life during those protests. In 2023, 16 years later, his missing camera was finally recovered and returned to his sister. That final footage showed the protests, the chaos, and Kenji's last moments. No one has ever been held accountable, but his legacy lives on. The Burma Media Association created the Kenji Nagai Award to honor journalists in Myanmar who risk everything to tell the truth. Now, this next one might seem lighter on the surface, but trust me, it's absolutely terrifying. It was around 2003 during an episode of Consuelo de Mujer, a Mexican daytime talk show aimed at women. The show typically covered lifestyle, health, and beauty, and occasionally featured live animals for educational segments. On this particular day, 2 animal handlers brought a young lion cub to the studio for a segment about wildlife conservation. Nearby, a mother sat holding her young daughter, who was calmly enjoying a lollipop. Everything seemed fine. Despite being a cub, the lion was already large and powerful, sitting on a leash and appearing relaxed. No safety barriers were in place between the animal and the audience. Then the little girl let out a soft whimper. That high-pitched sound caught the lion's attention immediately. It stood up and stared directly at her. The handlers tried to settle it down, and for a moment, it obeyed. Then the child began to cry louder, and without warning, the lion lunged. It grabbed the girl's legs with its front paws and bit down. The studio erupted in screams. The mother stood up and tried to pull her daughter close, but the lion wouldn't let go. Handlers rushed in, one prying open the lion's jaws, the other holding the animal's body. After several agonizing moments, they managed to separate the lion from the child. What happened next baffled viewers. The mother suddenly laughed. Some believed it was a shock response to the intense stress. Others were unsettled by how casual everyone on set seemed afterward. The show awkwardly continued with forced laughter and uneasy smiles. When the footage resurfaced on YouTube years later, viewers noticed the camera had actually zoomed in on the lion's face moments before it lunged, as if someone behind the camera sensed what was coming. No legal action was ever taken. The child's identity was never revealed, and she was never publicly seen again. Now, this next story will change the way you look at children's television forever. In 1979 in Clearwater, Florida, a new Christian kids show called Joy Junction hit the airwaves on the Christian television network. It featured colorful characters like Sheriff Dawn, Professor Cloudhopper, and a ventriloquist named Ron, who performed with his puppet Marty. The show focused on teaching kids about faith, kindness, and staying away from bad influences. Ronald William Brown, the man behind Ron, was also deeply involved in his church community in Largo, Florida. He hosted puppet shows, gave kids rides to church in the church van, and even invited them over for pizza before Bible study. To parents, he seemed like exactly the kind of person they wanted around their children. Joy Junction became hugely popular, eventually airing nationally on networks like Trinity Broadcasting and Family Net. It ran for nearly 20 years, reaching thousands of homes across America. Brown used his platform to teach children about resisting temptation and staying on the right path, all while hiding something monstrous behind that wholesome image. In 1998, police stopped Brown and found children's underwear in his vehicle. He claimed they were props for his puppets, and authorities let him go. Then in 2012, investigators looking into an online network uncovered a man from Kansas named Michael Arnett. When they searched Arnett's computer, they found deeply disturbing images of children. But what really stood out were the chat logs. Arnett had been exchanging messages with a man in Florida, and that man was Ronald Brown. The conversations went far beyond possession of illegal content. They included detailed, graphic discussions involving children. Brown referenced a specific boy he knew from church, sharing photos he had secretly taken of the child. On July 19, 2012, authorities raided Brown's home. What they found was horrifying. Thousands of illegal files, written plans, drawings, and content dating all the way back to 1978, a full year before Joy Junction even began. Brown was arrested and sentenced to 20 years in federal prison, essentially a life sentence given his age and health. In 2020, he died behind bars at age 65 from a neurological illness. After his arrest, every trace of Joy Junction was erased. Networks pulled the show without a single statement. Cast members distanced themselves, and it became lost media, with only a few clips surviving from old VHS tapes uploaded online. Ronald Brown wasn't just a performer, he was trusted by parents, surrounded by children, and active in the community. That's what makes this case so deeply disturbing. This one might make you wince. In 1992 in Manchester, England, comedian Bobby Davro was filming the final scene of his BBC show, Public Enemy No. 1. Bobby was known for his high-energy performances and fearless physical comedy. His father, Bill Nankivell, had been an Olympic runner, and Bobby himself stayed active throughout his career. At 34, he'd built a reputation for performing every stunt himself rather than using body doubles. The scene they were filming was supposed to be simple fun. Bobby was locked into a wooden stocks prop with his head and hands sticking through the holes, while his co-stars Keith Chegwin, Lionel Blair, and Jim Bowen threw tomatoes at him. But the prop wasn't properly secured, and Bobby was balancing on a box above a hard concrete floor. Suddenly, he lost his balance. With his arms trapped in the restraints, he couldn't stop himself. He hit the ground face first. Keith Chegwin later said the sound of Bobby's head hitting the concrete was one of the worst things he'd ever heard. Miraculously, Bobby managed to turn his head slightly mid-fall, which likely saved him from catastrophic injuries. He still split his chin open and briefly lost consciousness. At the hospital, doctors were surprised he hadn't broken his nose or lost any teeth, but he'd suffered serious whiplash and a neck injury. Recovery took about 6 weeks, but the pain never fully went away. Even decades later, Bobby still deals with chronic pain in his neck and upper back. Long car rides are difficult, and he still gets headaches from nerve pressure. The BBC never aired the footage, but now uses it internally for safety training. Bobby never received a single dollar in compensation. And just when you think it can't get darker, it does. On December 8, 2016, the morning sun streamed through the windows of the KXAN news studio in Austin, Texas, as anchor Patricia Williams prepared for another broadcast. At 51, Patricia had been a fixture in Austin households for over 15 years. Her warm personality and genuine care for local stories made her a voice that thousands of viewers relied on every single morning. That December morning, she was excited to cover holiday charity events, toy drives, and community celebrations. But for several weeks, Patricia had been battling severe headaches that kept getting worse. She chalked it up to stress and the demanding schedule of morning television, which required her to wake at 3:30 a.m. Her colleagues noticed she seemed more tired than usual, sometimes pausing mid-sentence during rehearsals. Patricia waved off their concerns with her signature smile, insisting she just needed more sleep. During a live interview about local holiday charities, Patricia was speaking with a representative from the Austin Food Bank about their Christmas meal distribution program. The conversation was flowing naturally. Then, without warning, she stopped speaking mid-sentence. Her words trailed off as she stared blankly at the camera. She became disoriented. Her words slurred and disconnected. She began speaking incoherently as her co-anchor desperately tried to keep things moving. Then Patricia collapsed at the news desk during the live broadcast, her body going limp as she fell forward. Viewers across Austin watched in shock as paramedics rushed to the set. The station cut to commercial, but thousands had already witnessed the medical emergency unfold in real time. Patricia was rushed to the hospital and diagnosed with a massive stroke that had caused irreversible brain damage. Despite the medical team's best efforts, she passed away 3 days later, surrounded by family who had flown in from across the country. The morning show went off the air for a week as the team grieved. Viewers flooded social media with tributes, sharing how Patricia had been part of their daily routines for years. A journalism scholarship was established in her name at the University of Texas to support aspiring broadcast journalists who shared her passion for community storytelling. Now, imagine watching someone you care about lose their life on your TV screen during what was supposed to be a normal morning. That's the reality these moments force us to confront. Live television doesn't come with a filter. There's no edit button, no second take. And sometimes the cameras capture things that no one was ever meant to see. These stories remind us how fragile life really is, and that every single moment matters. So if this video made you think, made you feel something, or reminded you to hold the people you love a little closer, drop a comment below telling me which story hit you the hardest. Smash that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear these stories, and if you haven't already, subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss another video, because trust me, the next one will leave you absolutely speechless.